So you're in the market for a sports bike. You have around 10,000 US greenbacks to burn, and you think the ZX4R is the one for you. You've been looking at her for a while. She's hot, or maybe it's a he. Let's all admit it, the 4R is a bit androgynous. Well, never mind. Before you whip out a gangster stack for a motorcycle with cylinders the size of a tomato sauce can, let's do a little good old-fashioned bench racing by comparing the ZX4R to some of its commonly cross-shop peers, after which we can understand why anyone would want to buy a ZX4R if they're shopping for a low-speed squid missile in the good old US of A. Now, paper specs don't mean everything, but I do think they're important to understand so you're not disappointed after purchase. It would be a shame if your riding buddy who saved over 3 large on a Ninja 500 surprised you on a back road and then rubbed it in later while buying you a drink. So let's start with the specs of the ZX4R and we'll get back to that 500 soon enough. The ZX4R weighs about 415 pounds wet, makes about 56 horsepower, and hauls its steel chassis, yeah, it's unfortunately non-aluminum, with only 27 foot-pounds of torque. And all of that culminates around 11,300 RPM. Now the red line of the ZX is actually a good bit higher, hovering around 15,000 RPM, but sadly here in the United States that last 4,000 RPM or so is primarily marketing fluff, as Kawasaki aggressively rolls off the power beyond 11,300. And y'all, wasting around 4,000 RPMs of revs makes me die a little inside. So let's get back to the ZX4R's much cheaper stablemate, the Ninja 500. The twin-cylinder entry-level Ninja weighs in about 40 pounds less than the more expensive ZX4R, makes about 5 less horsepower though, but makes 28% more torque. The percentage thing here is important because 6 foot-pounds of torque on paper doesn't look like much. But this torque is available pretty much all across the Ninja 500 RPM's rev range. It can be a big advantage for city riding, tight technical turns, and riding nooners. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. The 500 doesn't sing like the ZX4R, but you'll save over $3,000, so will you really care? Frankly, I think parallel twins get a bad rep in the Sonics department, so just install a slip-on and buck up, big boy. Admittedly though, the Ninja 500 feels a bit down market when you compare its build quality and finish to the Ninja ZX4R. So could I interest you in a sexy Italian bike built by the lovely folks in India? Meet the Aprilia RS 457. With the displacement sitting somewhere between the ZX4R and the Ninja 500, the RS 457 requires a checking account balance that's only a bit higher than the Ninja 500. Can we just pause for a moment and gaze upon the RS 457? Damn Aprilia, love that aluminum frame. Back to bench racing, the 457 weighs in at 385 pounds, makes 47 horsepower, that's less than either of the Ninja kids, but it does so using a 270-degree crank, which gives riders that lovely Ducati-esque growl that the Ninja 500 is lacking. Torque is similar to the Ninja 500, with the 457 pulling 32 foot-pounds at 6,700 RPM. That is so punchy. Alright, if you just can't get on with an Italian-designed motorcycle built in India, then could I interest you in the newest Japanese-designed motorcycle built in Hamamatsu, I don't think that's how you say it, Japan. Meet the GSX8R. Suzuki's great-looking sport bike weighs in at a nearly embarrassing 450 pounds. That's 30 pounds more than the already heavy ZX4R. However, the GSX8R makes 81 horsepower and nearly 60 foot-pounds of torque. That's like twice as much as the Ninja. Those figures are the best so far, and yet the GSX8R costs about the same as the ZX4R. But let's say 450 pounds is too much for your track day dreams. Then I have just the cure. Meet the Yamaha R7. The R7 has been with us for a few years now, but it's worth revisiting. Weighing in at 414 pounds, the R7 is a great counterpoint to the ZX4R as their weights are about the same. The R7 makes about 64 horsepower though and 44 foot-pounds of torque, with that torque arriving at a stump-pulling 6,500 RPM-ish, the lowest delivery point of this bunch. The power plant of the R7 is proven too, powering many an MT-07 whose front wheels always seem to be pointed at noon. The R7's pricing is a bit less than the ZX4R as well, saving you about 700 Benjamins, enough for some nice tires to use at a local track day. Now visually the R7 is not my favorite, but the styling has aged well, and it looks particularly striking in busier colorways. Also, the R7's weight, power figures, and engine sound always reminded me of a Ducati Supersport. Not the Supersport from today, but the one from the 90s. Allow me to digress for just a moment. It's a shame that everybody's favorite Italian brand is hyper-focused on hyper-motards and V4 rocket ships with insurance premiums that cost as much monthly as a payment on a motorcycle. Come on, Ducati. Give us a fun, light supersports bike, perhaps priced a bit north of the Scrambler. We know you can do it. And while you're at it, can you give us a bit of that beautiful red trellis frame from days gone by? Getting back on track, if you must have more than 2 cylinders, but you're scared of the ZX4R's reported reliability issues, then let me introduce you to the motorcycle that everyone in Squidland loves to hate, the Daytona 660. Triumph's triple might not growl like a 270-degree twin, but it sounds hot with a shorty slip-on, y'all. The Daytona is a bit of a porker at 440 pounds, making the Daytona about 25 pounds heavier than the ZX4R. But the Daytona has something extra up its sleeve, 93 horsepower and 50 foot-pounds of torque. Those figures are the highest of the group and almost 2x of what the ZX4R makes. And the price of the Daytona is right too, costing you about $9,200. I think it's safe to say the Daytona 660, despite all the squid hate, is the best bang for the buck of this group. So there you have it, 6 alternatives to the ZX4R. Any of these motorcycles are a better value, and they're all going to be fun to ride. Yeah, even the 4R with its lawnmowers torque figures. But now that you've seen the competition, why buy the 4R? I'll give you 3 reasons: nostalgia, novelty, and FOMO. Let's start with nostalgia. Kawasaki wants us to think about the ZX-4R when shopping for the 4R. But the ZX-4R was mental, a real pint-sized superbike with an aluminium frame and dryer hose-fed ram air. The 4R is not that. The ram air is barely noticeable, both the swing arm and the frame are made of steel, and the styling isn't unique. It looks very similar to the cheaper Ninja 500, and that's shameful. In my opinion, Kawasaki really wasted an opportunity here. With the 70s retro craze everywhere you look, and currently represented by 2 different Kawasaki's, the Z650 RS and Z900 RS, why not put the ZX4R's power plant and frame in a 70s retro rocket and call it the Z400 RS? If Kawasaki feels the 70s retro thing is a bit done, perhaps they could cash in on a neo-90s style bike that nobody's doing and base it on the ZX4R, complete with gaudy gimmicky ram air and dual round headlights. Middle-aged bros like me with a little extra bank would eat that up. And finally, Kawasaki could go back to the 80s, like Suzuki did with the Katana. And while Suzuki didn't have a lot of success there, Kawasaki has something that Suzuki doesn't. The GPZ 900R, featured in one of America's favorite movies of all time. Danger Zone Edition, anyone? So let's talk about novelty. Kawasaki is offering about 2/3 of what could be the most novel, low-power motorcycle riding experience in the United States, save the RS 457. The 4R's lack of torque and stratospheric redline give the rider the ability to feel like they're flying, but at a much reduced speed. While still dangerous, it's a heck of a lot of fun. The last third of the experience is easily obtainable via an ECU flash, but with a scary amount of 4R engine failures reported, although cause is not verified, some owners will want to keep the stock ECU programming as is, which makes novelty a bit harder to justify with so much competition. And finally, we have FOMO to consider. The continual march of higher emission standards and the squeeze of electrification ultimately kill all ICE-powered motorcycles. Inline 4s are likely to die first, and that makes the low-power ZX4R a bit of a figurative middle finger to its inevitable demise. The other motorcycles mentioned in this video will be around for a bit in one form or another. Twin-cylinder engines and even triples are more emissions-friendly. They have some time left. And who knows, the motorcycle industry could license Porsche's 6-cycle technology and extend the horizon of ICE-powered motorcycles a bit more. So that's it, y'all. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Have fun no matter what you choose to ride, and be safe out there.